Hey everyone, and welcome to the third devlog for Dread Protocol. When you need to create over 250 rooms for your game, you need a process that keeps you sane. In this devlog, I'll break down my approach to level and environment design, how I streamlined the process and managed to build so many spaces so quickly. Quick disclaimer, I'm using the term level design pretty loosely here. Since levels in Dread Protocol are procedurally generated, I don't actually control the final layout of each one. What I do control is a predefined set of rooms, so it's probably more accurate to call this room design or environment design. Dread Protocol has 15 station types. Each one has a theme. Every station has start, normal, and end rooms. 45 room sets in total. That's a lot of rooms.
That's a lot of nuts!
Right now, I'm at 150, but I'm aiming for at least 250 rooms. At first, I relied on example rooms from asset packs I was using. It was a great shortcut, but that could only take me so far. The example rooms felt cramped, uninspired, and were not designed with my game's mechanics in mind. I knew I could do better. And that's when I started building my own process. Before building anything else, I started collecting references on a Pinterest board. I filter references using a few key criteria. A good reference will have at least two of the following. Easy to block out. If a room is too detailed or intricate, it's a nightmare to translate into game space. My room spawns on a grid, so bonus points if it maps well. A distinctive feature. I don't just want a bunch of generic square rooms. There has to be something that makes the space interesting, like a raised platform, a central pillar, or an unusual layout I can build around. Looks fun for combat. Some rooms just feel like they'd be great for a gunfight. Whether it's natural cover points, verticality, or multiple paths to move through the space, I keep playability in mind. Too simple to pass up. Sometimes a reference is just so straightforward that I know it will work perfectly without much adaptation. Not every room has to be so complex. Fits the station theme. I don't exclusively look for sci-fi references. Some of the best ideas come from unexpected places, like D&D maps, tabletop miniatures, and even real-world architecture. But when I do find a reference that fits a station type perfectly, I cash in. Collecting references is probably the most chilled part of this process. You can do it anywhere. The process is never really finished. I still add to my Pinterest boards to this day.
It's day!
At this point, you might be thinking, aren't you just copying other people's designs? And yeah, I get that. But references aren't about copying, they're a starting point. They help spark ideas, break creative blocks, and keep the process moving. More often than not, the final result looks completely different from the reference. The goal isn't to replicate, but to reinterpret and adapt ideas into something that fits Dread Protocol's world. Next, I take a reference I like and map it to a grid. I usually do this step in my head, but for more complex spaces, I sketch it in a notepad or draw it on paint. This helps me keep proportions in check and plan layouts efficiently. Next, I quickly block out the layout. Level designers call this whiteboxing. It's just a rough, functional version of the room to get a sense of scale, flow, and gameplay feel. It's often at this stage that I know if a room is going to work or not. There's no shame in cutting your losses and starting again. Once the shape works, I do a second pass using environmental assets to bring it to life. This stage, I often know what station type the room belongs to, and whether the room will be a start, end, or normal room, which helps with the set dressing. Giving the room a function/purpose also helps with this process. If I know I'm building a warehouse, I'll decorate the space with boxes, forklifts, and machinery. You can and should be more granular with it. It could be a warehouse that's sole purpose is to load and unload cargo from ships. Next, do a loot pass. I add loot placements, which also double as additional cover. I also add a few potential spawn points for supply crates, often hiding them in a corner, so when the player finds them, it actually feels like they've earned it. Then comes the lighting pass. I try to make the light come from actual light sources where I can, but sometimes you just need to throw in a point light to lift the overall brightness of the space. Then I do a clutter pass. You don't want your spaces to feel unlived in. I add props, debris, and general clutter. This helps make the space feel more believable and can also be used for environmental storytelling. Finally, if the space allows it, I start adding extras. For example, sounds. Ambient hums, distant mechanical whirs, or dripping pipes. Particle effects also add polish. Smoke, sparks, flickering lights, whatever makes it feel more alive. If you have a design that works, don't be afraid to make some variations of it. Here are some on-screen examples of how I've taken one core shape and repurposed it for multiple spaces. You can double down on this by randomizing cover and loot objects. That's it really. I hope I gave you some useful insights into environment and level design. My goal was to keep this as a general guide and not get bogged down by the specific design challenges of Dread Protocol. I also didn't cover how I generate levels through code, but if you're interested, check out this short I made for a quick breakdown. And if you made it to the end, don't forget to wishlist Dread Protocol on Steam. Thanks for watching, cheers!